My best friend of 15 years, Claire Davis, accused me of kidnapping her daughter. After I saved Julia from a suicide attempt, I froze. How could someone I trusted more than family twist my love into a crime? Her voice still echoes. She did it for attention. That moment shattered every memory we shared. 6 months later, she stood sobbing outside court, barred from entry, stripped of all parental rights. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. When Claire and I were teenagers, we used to talk about raising daughters over strawberry milkshakes and late-night drives. She swore she'd be the mom who never yelled. When Julia was born, I cried like she was my own. Our girls shared birthdays, sleepovers, scraped knees. Once, Claire whispered, "If anything ever happens to me, you take Julia." I smiled, clueless about the weight of those words. Back then, trust was the foundation of everything we were. After Julia turned 10, Claire began disappearing. Lawn trips, sudden spa weekends. She'd drop Julia at our place with a wink, saying, "She's happier with you anyway." Rob and I brushed it off, thinking she needed a break. But sometimes Julia arrived with sunburns or stories that didn't add up. Emma once said, "Julia cries every time her mom leaves." Still, I trusted Claire. We laughed through red flags, blind to the cracks forming beneath our friendship. It started with a late-night call. Julia had locked herself in our bathroom, sobbing, refusing to eat. I called Claire, desperate, but she silenced me mid-sentence. I just landed in Bali. I held the phone in disbelief. Dr. Chen later said Julia showed signs of long-term emotional neglect. I took leave from work to care for her. Claire never returned that month. KSBS opened a case, and yet, Claire accused me of poisoning Julia against her. Claire posted beach photos while Julia clutched her stomach in pain. I stayed up documenting symptoms, sending updates Claire ignored. Emma asked, "Why doesn't Aunt Claire care?" Julia whispered she feared going back. I tried contacting Mark, her biological father, but he hadn't heard from Claire in years. Still, Claire painted me as unstable. Then she called the police accusing me of abduction. Officer Martinez, after seeing Julia, quietly said, "You're doing the right thing." A wellness check brought KSBS to our door. Julia clung to me shaking. Miss Thompson asked gently, "Do you feel safe here?" Julia nodded, tears streaming. Claire claimed I manipulated her, citing emotional overreach. Emma's recordings Claire yelling at Julia over missed selfies surfaced. Still, some family members hesitated, afraid of rocking the boat. Natalie, my sister and our attorney, urged legal steps. "This isn't friendship anymore," she warned. I finally realized we weren't dealing with a misunderstanding. Julia began therapy. Dr. Chen noted anxiety, abandonment trauma. Claire's only contact, a text, "She'll thank me later." Taylor, Claire's ex, reached out. He'd seen similar patterns. "She weaponizes silence," he said. Meanwhile, Rob found Claire's email to a travel agent. "Cancel Bali if custody becomes messy." My hands shook reading it. We filed for emergency guardianship. Claire retaliated with social posts. My daughter was stolen. Strangers called me a kidnapper. But Julia's grip never loosened. In court, Claire wore white and wept on cue, but Julia didn't flinch. "I'm safer with Sarah," she said clearly. Natalie presented texts, Emma's recordings, and Taylor's affidavit. Then Mark took the stand, debunking Claire's narrative. He hadn't abandoned Julia, he was blocked. Claire's face cracked. Judge Patel ordered a custody evaluation and granted temporary guardianship to us. Claire gasped outside. Reporters swarmed. Julia just clutched my hand. For the first time, I saw strength in her. I couldn't finish the whole story in the short. The full story is on my channel and linkable.